Good afternoon. Welcome to the webinar this afternoon on implementing the Commodity Board provision of the 2014 Farm Bill. I'm glad all of you can join us. My name is Rob Hedberg. I'm one of the national program leaders. If those of you joining us with an audio hookup can mute your phones, it would help a great deal to avoid getting that feedback. Again, my name is Rob Hedberg. I'm a national program leader here at the National Institute of Food and Agriculture. And with me, we have several other people who have been active in launching this program. They include Paul Tanger, who's an American Association for the Advancement of Science, or AAAS Fellow, who's on assignment here at NIFA. He's been instrumental in helping us stand up this new program. And also Mark Mirando is another NPL here at NIFA, who has major responsibilities for the Agriculture and Food Research Initiative, which we call AFRI. I will kick this off this afternoon with a thumbnail sketch of the provision and progress over the past year. I'll then turn it over to Paul Tanger, who will provide an overview of the process ahead for the second year that we're just starting now, and also guide you to the appropriate resources we have on our website. Then Mark Mirando will provide an overview of many of the pertinent details of the Agriculture and Food Research Initiative, or AFRI, that will help you determine what types of topics would be appropriate and what funding levels would go with those specific topics. Finally, we'll turn it back over to Paul to give you the specific details of submitting topics this year, how they will be reviewed, and how the grant awards will be made. We hope to wrap up our section of this within 30 to 40 minutes and make sure we leave the bulk of the time available this afternoon for your questions about the process. To clarify at the very outset, the purpose of this webinar today is really to inform and guide commodity boards.
Turn on name record, press 1. For tones on entry and exit, press 2. For silence on entry and exit, press 3. To entry and exit tones are now off. Anyone still on the line?
Okay. Sorry for the interruption there. We're just doing a little technical adjustment. So again, the purpose of this webinar today is really to talk about the path going forward for implementing the submission and inclusion of topics in the FY 2017 AFRI RFAs. We'll be developing those RFAs in the coming months, so it's very important that we start the process now and solicit the topics which we can incorporate later. To give you a very, very brief background, this provision was included in the 2014 Farm Bill, and it directed USDA to solicit AFRI topics from eligible commodity boards and topics that they would be willing to co-fund. The desired benefits that we see in this program are to increase the funding leverage for both parties, to help increase project relevancy within AFRI by getting just additional data points about the research which is most needed. We wanted to also, really one of the biggest benefits we hope to achieve is to increase engagement between NIFA and commodity boards, and also as well commodity groups. We hope that in this process that you will gain a better understanding of the AFRI program and how it works, and also in general we'd like you to get a better sense of the range of programs that are offered by NIFA. Likewise, we want to learn of your processes and your needs and concerns and build better partnerships. And finally, although the Farm Bill provision is specific to commodity boards as eligible to submit topics, we are as an agency very interested in more active engagement with commodity groups as well. So at this point, I want to just walk through what we did last year, last 2 years. When this was passed in the Farm Bill in 2014, our first step was to gather a great deal of stakeholder input through several webinars and work with other groups such as USDA Agricultural Marketing Service. Then in 2015 and 16, we launched the first round with a Federal Register notice in July of last year to solicit topics. Through that process, we received 18 suggested topics from 12 boards that were all submitted by the due date in September. Ultimately, those suggested topics worked down to agreements with 5 boards for 7 topics and $1.7 million of commodity board funding that has been included in our RFAs at this point. The RFAs have been released. The application deadlines for these RFAs with the commodity board topics is this summer. And applicants have begun contacting boards and asking for letters of support. And the feedback we get so far from the commodity boards is they're very pleased to see this kind of interest coming from a new group of researchers. The final step of the process will be the review and award of the decisions this fall. At this point, I think it's really important to give a shout out to all the people and groups who have been engaged in this process last year and help us stand up a new initiative. The biggest thanks go to the 5 boards which have worked through the entire agreement process and now have their topics included in our RFAs. A close second thanks go to all the other commodity boards who entered into the process as submitted topics and worked with us on many details, but ultimately for different reasons chose not to enter an agreement for the FY16 RFAs. This willingness of commodity boards to work with us on that first year as we stood this program up was an enormous help to us, and it was a great service to all the other commodity groups. So I want to say again thanks to all those who worked with us last year. Also need to shout out for the many people within USDA. It's been a real team effort to make this happen. We worked very closely with USDA Ag Marketing Service, the Office of our General Counsel, the Office of Budget and Policy Analysis, and even the Secretary's Office to make sure we got this launched as well as we could. And within NIFA, we also had many, many people who were working on this to stand it up. So now, this year, as we get into the 2017 RFA process, we hope to build on last year's success. And with that, I'll turn it over to Paul Tonger. One thing I will say, if you do want to raise a question, please use the Adobe Connect and enter a question in the chat box, and we will be monitoring those. Thank you.
All right. Paul? Thank you, Rob, and thank you all again for joining. So I'm going to touch on some implementation details and then get into some further details towards the end after Mark goes through some of the AFRI information. So as sort of was previewed by the FY16 progress, we incorporate the commodity board provision into the current AFRI framework, and this ensures that we have rigorous competition among those grant applications, and that only the best science will be funded through these collaborative efforts. And so we'll solicit these ideas, these topics essentially for all of the RFAs within AFRI, and we believe that this will allow maximum flexibility from your participation, depending on what your interests are and what AFRI priority areas they best align with. And that's why in a little bit we'll go through these AFRI areas so you can better understand and explore where our interests align. So throughout this webinar, we'll refer to resources on the website, and the link is at the top of the current page here. And we've overhauled that recently for this year, and I'll highlight some of the pieces that we'll talk about in more detail. So obviously we have a link there for the Federal Register notice, and we have a list of the eligible boards that we've so far determined, and then information on how you can request eligibility if you don't see yourself on that list. We have a detailed timeline for FY17, as well as a detailed list of the AFRI program areas. And as I mentioned, Mark will go through that in a second. We have the topic submission is an online mechanism this year, and some frequently asked questions that we've added more to this year from questions that we got during the first year of implementation. And so these last three pieces, the detailed program areas, the online submission, and the updated FAQs have been updated for this year. So if you looked at that previously, I'd encourage you to go back and check out that website. Right, and so this is just what that website looks like currently. You can either go to NIFA.com or NIFA.usta.gov, sorry, and either search for it or follow the link in the previous link. And at the very bottom of that page is a list of resources, and I've kind of gone through these, and today we're going to talk about the list of eligible boards, the timeline, the AFRI program, the program areas, the form, and the frequently asked questions. So I'm going to start off with who's eligible, and this is essentially any entity that's been established under a commodity board promotion law or a state commodity board or other equivalent state entity. So in collaboration with the Agricultural Marketing Service, we've compiled a list of national commodity boards. Now these are entities established under commodity promotion laws, as well as federal marketing order boards and committees. And the less clear and basically depending on a case by case is the equivalent state entities. And so as I mentioned, that list is going to be on our website, and we'll add to it as we get additional requests and approvals for boards. So in order to determine if you're eligible, as we mentioned, state boards are more complex. However, our objective is to be inclusive and open. So if you're interested in participating in this program and you don't see your board listed, there's a mechanism on the website to send us your charter and authorizing statute. And we can review that and ensure that you're eligible under this program. So next, what type of topics should you submit? First and foremost, I mean, obviously, these are going to be topics that are of importance and relevance to you and your constituents and stakeholders. These also must relate to the established AFRI priorities, which we'll go through. And we will review these topics that you submit based on established criteria. And they'll be incorporated, as has happened for FY16 and will happen for FY17, into future requests for applications. And so when we get to the point that these have been approved, we'll request that you match the AFRI awarded funds. So these will be co-funded grants that applicants can apply for, and we'll select the most appropriate and the highest ranking awards for each of these AFRI topic areas. And so now I'll turn it over to Mark, who will go through a little bit more of the details of the AFRI program.
Thank you, Paul. So before I get started discussing the AFRI program in detail, I thought I'd just give you a brief overview of what we do here at the National Institute of Food and Agriculture. So at NIFA, we provide extramural funding for research, education, and extension throughout the United States. And NIFA does provides this funding basically through two mechanisms. The first is competitive grant funding, and the second is capacity funding. And this is for work in the food and agricultural sciences. So currently, in the current year, that is fiscal year 2016, the NIFA budget is approximately $1.5 billion. That's the total budget for all competitive grant and capacity funding. The AFRI program that we're going to talk about that is relevant to this Commodity Board provision is NIFA's flagship competitive grant program, and it is currently funded at $350 million. The President's budget for next year requests for NIFA an increase of about 4.5% to about $1.56 billion, including a doubling of the AFRI budget or AFRI funding to $700 million. This is the President's budget proposal for 2017, so Congress still has to act on that request. And for the AFRI program, the topics or the program priorities, budgets, and the topics, budgets, and applications from Commodity Board must align with the AFRI priority areas to be competitive. So the next few slides are going to describe the organization of AFRI and a little bit of the characteristics of some of the program areas. AFRI is organized around and is aligned with the 6 priority areas listed that were first identified in the 2008 Farm Bill and were modified slightly in the 2014 Farm Bill. And these 6 priorities are plant health and production and plant products, animal health and production and animal products, food safety, nutrition and health, bioenergy, natural resources and environment, agricultural systems and technology, and agricultural economics and rural communities. So those are the 6 Farm Bill priority areas for which AFRI is authorized. So that's the alignment of AFRI, and then AFRI is organized into 7 requests for applications, or RFAs. And the first of these is the Food, Agricultural, and Natural Resource and Human Sciences Education and Literacy Initiative, RFA. Then there is a Foundational Program RFA, and then there are 5 Challenge Area RFAs. And I'll talk about all of these RFAs in a little bit more detail in the subsequent slides. So a description of all these RFAs, or a listing of all these RFAs, along with the program areas and grant sizes that are listed, solicited in these RFAs for 2016 is on our Commodity Board webpage, and the title of that document is indicated at the bottom of the slide. That is a list of AFRI FY 2016 program areas, funding levels, and award durations. And so this is, again, this is for the current year, so it's not directly applicable to going forward with proposal of 2017 topics, but it gives you an idea of what RFAs are available, what programs are available within RFAs, and what the award sizes generally are, duration. And we've actually included a column that would put in that list the recommended match from the commodity board for a single award. So it gives it to you in a single snapshot rather than having to leaf through many pages of many different RFAs. So the first RFA I mentioned on 2 slides previous to this one was Food, Agricultural, Natural Resource and Human Science Education and Literacy Initiative, or the ELI RFA. And this currently in FY16 has 4 program areas. Postdoctoral fellowships program in which the individual applies, pre-doctoral fellowships in which the individual applies for the fellowship. It has a program for undergraduate research and extension experiential learning fellowship in which the institution applies for a group of fellowships for up to 30 students per grant. And then there is a program for professional development for secondary school teachers and educational professionals. And this, either the individual or the institution could apply. So the second RFA is perhaps our broadest RFA and most comprehensive, and this is the AFRI Foundational Program. And the 6 primary program areas listed in this Foundational Program RFA are aligned identically with the 6 Farm Bill priorities, and those are listed on this slide, and those are the same 6 I mentioned previously. I'm not going to repeat them for the sake of brevity, but these are the 6 program areas within the Foundational Program RFA. There also are 2 other program areas listed in that RFA: the CARE program, the Critical Agricultural Research and Extension program, and the Exploratory Research program. And those are listed both in this RFA and on that listing, that spreadsheet listing of programs that I mentioned in the previous slide. So for, in the current year, we actually have, that is FY16, we actually have 6 challenge area RFAs, but going forward in FY17, as indicated in the President's budget proposal, which is for NIFA, which is also on our website, we will be consolidating these into 5 challenge area RFAs. So 4 of them are identical to the previous year, or to the current year, and that is the Agriculture and Natural Resource Science and for Climate Variability and Change RFA, Childhood Obesity Prevention RFA, Food Safety RFA, and the Sustainable Bioenergy RFA. So these are the same 4. These 4 will be the RFAs released in FY17, fiscal year 2017, as they are in the current year. The last RFA is Water for Food Production Systems, and this is an RFA that in 2017 will be a consolidation of what we currently released as a Water for Agriculture RFA and the Food Security RFA. So it'll be in next year, it'll be a single RFA called Water for Food Production Systems. So I just briefly like to provide you with characteristics, some general characteristics of the foundational program compared with the challenge area programs. And I'll say these are generalizations, so it means that they don't hold true 100% of the times. Most of the times they're true, but not 100% of the times. So the program area priorities in the foundational program mostly solicit for single function research. Not always, but most of the programs do solicit for single function research. They're mostly for fundamental research, but they will support applied research when it is when it is of high quality and a competitive review allows it to float to the top of the group of proposals. Generally, the program areas don't change markedly from year to year. We do have some changes. For example, this year, the plant health and production and plant products program area was changed pretty dramatically in 2016 compared with 2015, excuse me. So there are exceptions to this. There are generally the foundational program solicit for smaller grant sizes of up to $500,000 in total costs for the entire grant period. So the total award would be up to $500,000. And generally, these grants support individual investigators or small teams of investigators. In contrast, the challenge areas are mostly solicit grants that are integrated projects. And what we mean by integrated is that these grants applications must integrate at least 2 of the 3 functions of the agricultural knowledge system. Those 3 functions being research, education, and extension. So integrated grants have to not only include 2 of those 3, at least 2 of those 3 functions, but they have to integrate them together so they're seamless. The research component in the challenge areas tends to be more applied. That's not always the case, but again, not always the case, but typically is more applied. These programs, the challenge areas, generally often change markedly from year to year. Again, there's exceptions. For example, the childhood obesity prevention RFA program area priorities have been fairly consistent for the last 5 years. They tend to have larger grant sizes, typically grant sizes of $1 million per grant or more. In some cases up to $5 million or $7.5 million even. And these grants tend to support multiple investigators or large teams of investigators. So again, a summary of all the topics and award sizes available in our current year's RFAs, again to use as examples of what might be available in 2017, are available on our Commodity Board website, and this is the title of the document. You want to look for that spreadsheet. So as a further example of topics that may be available, this slide lists the different topics that we have that were proposed by commodity boards for FY16 and ended up in RFAs. So the top 2 lines are for the topics submitted by the Kansas Wheat Commission. The first one was in the Food Security RFA. The second one was in the Foundational RFA. The National Pork Board has a topic that they proposed that's in the Foundational RFA. And that last column indicates the program area within the RFA that they are within. So that is in the CARE program. The Iowa Corn Promotion Board, as a consortium with several other boards, propose a topic which is in the Foundational RFA in the Plant Breeding Program area priority. Washington State Potato Commission has a topic in the Foundational RFA CARE program. The National Peanut Board also has 2 topics, one of which is in the foundational RFA care program and the other is in the foundational program food safety program area priority. So those are just some examples, and the amount the commodity boards have committed are shown in thousands of dollars there in the center column. And I'll turn this back over to Paul Tanger to take you through the process and next steps.
All right, thanks, Mark. So now we're going to get into some details of you know, how this is going to play out for FY17. And so for the topic submission, topics can be submitted at any time. However, for inclusion in FY17 RFAs, the deadline as specified in the Federal Register notice is July 18th of this year. As I mentioned before, we have a simple online submission for those topics that you can find on our website. And just want to highlight, you can submit, any one board can fund up to $2.5 million per topic, totaling up to $10 million on multiple topics from any one board. And so to go through the timeline, split into 2 parts. In May, we released the Federal Register notice. The July 18th deadline is for the topics to be submitted for inclusion in FY17 RFAs. And then within 30 days of July 18th, we'll notify commodity boards of our decision to include or not include those topics in the RFAs. From there, for the topics that we have decided are eligible to be included, we'll coordinate a signed collection agreement or co-funding agreement to set aside the money to co-fund 50% of those grant applications. And so within 2 weeks, 14 days of signing that agreement, we're asking that the money be set aside in an escrow account. So moving on to the second part of the timeline, those topics will be integrated into AFRI RFAs. The dates of release, which are yet to be determined. From there, approximately 60 to 90 days after the RFAs are published, the grant applications will be due. And then within 60 days after that deadline, the applicants have the opportunity, if they haven't already before, to request a letter of support from the commodity board interested in funding research in those topics. And so we haven't mentioned it before, but that letter of support is required for any grant application that will be funded using this co-funding mechanism. And so after the peer review panel for each of the AFRI programs, we'll notify the commodity boards approximately 21 days after the panel about our funding decisions. At that time, we'll be asking the commodity boards to transfer the money from the escrow account to NIFA so that the research can begin. And so just a little bit more detail on what is involved in that topic screening process. So essentially the eligibility and allowed use of the funds will be determined by NIFA along with the Agricultural Marketing Service. And then an internal panel will review each of the topics for alignment with the different AFRI priorities and the president's budget. And as I mentioned, within 30 days, we'll inform you of the status of your topic. And topics may be refined to more appropriately fit within each of the AFRI priorities. And so I mentioned before, so these topics will then be integrated into the RFAs. Between the time that the topics are submitted and the publication of the RFA, confidentiality is going to be very important, because we do not release any information until the RFAs are published. And we're asking that any boards that participate in this also do not, release any information about their topic or commitment until the RFAs are published. And so I mentioned a moment ago, when the RFAs are released, grant applicants need to contact the commodity board sponsoring those topics and request a letter of support from the boards to receive one of these grants. And as I mentioned, our peer review competitive process ensures that the highest ranked proposals will be funded in each program area. And this is why we've spent some time highlighting the different AFRI program areas so that the grant applications will be competitive in this process. So the successful application, the successful applications that are eligible for co-funding will be asking the commodity boards to transfer the money to a U.S. government deposit account. And these awards are all subject to AFRI terms and conditions, and they'll be grants under the AFRI program. And so the NIFA and the commodity board will coordinate on communications, likely with the Agricultural Marketing Service as a partner to highlight this program. And at the end of the grant, any unused funds would be returned to the board that co-sponsored the topic. So I think we're about ready to wrap up here, and I wanted to highlight the final piece that's been updated on our website, which is the frequently asked questions. And so we've divided those questions into 4 areas. The first being submission of topics and review of topics, which I just went over. The second area being the review of applications for the actual projects that would address those topics, and the processing piece, how the commodity board funding commitments and funds management occurs, and finally questions relating to the transfer of the commodity board funds to NIFA. And so I'd encourage you to go and visit and look over those frequently asked questions. But for now, we're going to open it up to any questions you may have for us. And once again, please visit that website. And if you have any questions following this webinar, you can email us at commodityboards@nifa.usda.gov.
Okay, this is Rob Hedberg again, and I'd like to encourage any of you who have questions to go ahead and enter them into the chat box, and we'll take those questions in the order they're received. We do appreciate your patience as we went through a lot of material this morning or this afternoon, and we know it's sometimes like drinking from a fire hose with lots of different pieces to go over. So again, we do want to encourage any questions you have today, encourage any questions you have later on in the process through the commodity boards at nifa.usda.gov email address. While we're waiting for questions, there's one other thing I'd like to do, and that is to introduce a new NPL who has joined us here at NIFA within the past several months, and that would be Jeff Steiner. Jeff is a new national program leader for agronomy, and one of the reasons he's with us here today is he is going to be added to the Commodity Board's implementation team, and he's also going to be working very significantly on improved engagement and outreach with commodity boards across, or commodity groups across the board. I don't know if you'd like to say a word, but just so you will recognize that name, Jeff Steiner is a new NPL here, and we are going to be increasing our focus in agronomy and also working on greater outreach. At this point, I don't see any questions. Or
hold on a second, I muted it, so
okay.
I just want to interrupt. Want me to read them off, and then you guys can answer them?
Okay, that would be good. Yeah.
So Bob Parker asks, is there a way to get an extension on topic applications beyond July 17th?
I think the actual date in the Federal Register notice, I believe it says July 18th at close of business. So we gave you one more day there, Bob. But what I would encourage you to do is to go ahead and submit it in the best form you can possibly get it to by July 17th. Because what we're asking you to do at this point is submit a topic that you would like to see us include in AFRI and that your board would be willing to co-fund. There'll be a number of steps in the process and refinement that take place after that July 18th deadline for submitting the topics. But it is important to, if you want to be in the FY17 AFRI RFAs, to get your topic submitted. You can submit topics at any point during the year after that date, but topics submitted later we would not be able to include until the next AFRI RFA for 2018.
Right, and this is Paul Tanger, and I could just add a little information. You saw based on the topics from FY16 that they're relatively general. And within the topic submission form, I didn't go into detail on what we're asking for, but essentially there's two pieces. And one piece is a 1 to 2 sentence topic summary, clearly stating the issue you hope to address, and as the topic would appear in a request for applications. And we're hoping that that can be phrased within 100 words, and a topic rationale that justifies the alignment with the AFRI program area and why it's important to your group. And we're asking that be within a 200-word limit. And so this is very brief request that we're asking for by July.
Okay, Bob Parker also asks, states, we haven't been through a complete cycle on the 2016 process. I am seeking industry partners to participate for 2017, but haven't completed the entire process to share with them. So I guess that's Bob's rationale for asking for an extension. So we recognize that not everybody will be able to participate given the time constraints, but this will, topics, as Paul said, topics, and Rob said, topics can be submitted after July 18th for the subsequent year, but next year we'll be putting out another Federal Register notice soliciting topics again for FY18. So this will be an annual cycle.
One other point that's probably important to make here is that last year when we first launched this process with the Federal Register notice in July, it was later than we wanted it to be because just the issues of getting it started. Right now we've got the Federal Register notice that's come out much closer to the time we want it to be posted so that we can keep all the other steps in the process moving in sync and make sure we do as much as we can to keep the RFA process moving quickly and get the funding cycle completed. So that's one of the reasons why we have to keep moving, and we did move up the process 2 months from where it was last year. I don't know if people are being shy or if people like me sometimes don't like to type. They would rather ask a question verbally. And what I'll be willing to go ahead, and if somebody wants to ask a question verbally, provided we don't get multiple questions at the same time, please unmute your phone and feel free to ask. Again, one of the things that we have tried to do this year, which was an improvement over last year, is some of the things that we feel will be most helpful after we saw the kind of questions and issues that would crop up during the implementation process. We've tried to do a much better job of getting all of the materials posted to the website to answer the questions that you might have. We've really fleshed out the frequently asked questions, so I think that that's a great place to look for answers, because many times the questions you have are ones that other groups have already had. The other thing that was an issue that was a little bit difficult to work with last year was the understanding how the AFRI program is structured, the number of different grant or a number of different RFAs in the challenge areas, and the foundational awards and the ELI program. So we hope we've done a much better job of putting that information on the website for you so that you can see what the different types of grants are and what the funding expectation associated with those would be. Not hearing any questions immediately. I don't want to keep people on the phone indefinitely this afternoon, and we won't do that. We'll keep it open for a couple more minutes, whether you want to raise a question either verbally or through the chat box. Are there anything that any of the participants, or Paul or Mark, that you would like to expand on?
Not at this time, and I would just highlight that if you come up with any questions later on, feel free to shoot us an email. Multiple people have access to and check that email box, so we'll respond relatively quickly.
Well, without further comments or questions coming in, I think we're going to go ahead. Wait, we do have one question coming. Again, one of the things I wanted to do is really point out how many people worked to make this happen last year, and especially the contribution of all the boards who did submit topics, and our partners at Agricultural Marketing Service were just extremely helpful to make it work as well as it did last year. I feel somewhat like the moderator for a baseball game during a rain delay right now. But
I'll just add that I think it's important, if you're not, even if you're not sure of whether you'll be able to commit to a topic, it's better to submit the topic by the deadline and withdraw it than to not submit it and it turns out that your commodity board could have supported the topic, because after we can't go beyond the deadline. We don't want to get 1,000 topics that end up being withdrawn,
but if you reasonably, if you have, if you can reasonably think that your topic could be supported, but you're not 100% certain, you can submit the topic to us, and you're not committed actually to that topic until you sign the co-funding agreement.
One of the things that we did do last year when topics did get submitted, we did work on a number of those and we refined them. We sometimes consolidated several topics into a single topic and things of that nature. So it can be an iterative process even after the original submission of that topic. So there will be some back and forth with the different groups to refine them and improve the topic and make sure they fit and the funding amounts are correct, etc. Okay, what I'd like to do now then is go ahead and I thank you all for joining us this afternoon. We appreciate your interest in this. Please recognize that there are open lines of communications with any other questions you might have prior to submitting topics on July 18th. We look forward to working with you. And with that, thank you all very much.
Thank you, guys.